Like most people, I've been to McDonald's probably over 100 times. Last year, I lived in an apartment building that was within a walking distance of a McDonald's. It was right down the street and then across another one. It took maybe 10 minutes at most for me to get there, and I took advantage of this several times on late nights when I was really hungry. One night, a few months ago, it was really late, but I was starving. I think it was a Friday night, and I had been out late. I got back home, but wasn't really that tired. However, I was starving. I walked over to the McDonald's and then went inside and ordered on the touchscreen that they had. Nobody else was in there at this hour, and when I got my food, I took the bag and left to walk back to my house. This McDonald's had the back parking lot up against a wooded area. It was kind of on the edge of the shopping area, and then it led to a more residential area, which is where my apartment was. There was a long sidewalk that went along the side of it, and I would walk that and then cross the street. As I was walking down the sidewalk all by myself, I soon started to hear footsteps behind me. They were maybe 100 feet back, so pretty far. I'm not sure why, but I looked behind me. Maybe it was because of how quiet things were. There were really no cars on the road, and nobody else was out walking for sure. When I looked though, I saw a man dressed as Ronald McDonald, the full suit and everything. It wasn't Halloween time either, so this was super strange. Why was there some guy dressed as Ronald McDonald at 1 o'clock in the morning? He was walking behind me on the path, as if he had just emerged from the woods or something. Eventually, I crossed the street. I didn't expect Ronald McDonald to cross as well, but he did. He was still pretty far behind me, but the longer I walked and he remained behind me, the more nervous I felt. Eventually, I made it back to my apartment complex. The guy was still following me, and still about the same distance behind. The way he was walking was sort of creepy too. I'm not really sure how to explain it, but it wasn't just an average walk. It was sort of slow and robotic almost. I was in a hurry now to get inside, and I got to my apartment building and went in. I got up to my unit, which was on the 4th floor, and went inside. I felt so much better to be off the streets with that weirdo. I wasn't really sure where he ended up going, because I hadn't cared to look behind me. I went into my bedroom in my apartment and looked outside. When I did, I saw the Ronald McDonald guy standing in the parking lot, staring right up at my window at me. He was expressionless and didn't move. I was super creeped out by this now. I closed the blinds to my window, and then closed the blinds to every other window that I had. I did my best to ignore the whole situation after that, and the next day, he was gone. I'm not sure who the guy was or why he followed me, and looking back, that was a super creepy thing for the guy to do, whoever he was. A couple of years ago, I bought a gaming computer on Facebook Marketplace. I've been wanting to buy one for a while, and I knew that they're typically very expensive. So that gave me the idea to go on Facebook Marketplace and look for a used one. After several days of looking, I found one that I wanted. I decided to reach out to the seller and ask a little more information about it. The seller was a guy named Jeremy. We went back and forth a little bit, and I decided that I wanted to buy it. It was a pretty good deal, so we agreed on a day that I would go over and get the computer. It also came with a monitor, keyboard, and mouse as well. So after I bought it, I took it home, set it up, and started using it. I was happy with my purchase, and I used the computer for the next week and a half. Then I got another message on Facebook from Jeremy. He said that he wanted his computer back. I was really confused when I saw this, because he had just sold it to me like a week before. He said that he changed his mind and wanted it back now. I didn't want to return it. I liked the computer, and I had already installed several games and other programs on it. I told Jeremy no, I wasn't going to return it. Then Jeremy said that he would give me a certain amount of money for it. The funny thing is that the amount he offered was less than I paid for the computer by a few $100s. I pointed that out, and he said that it was all he could afford to give. Now, when he originally said he wanted it back, I assumed that meant he would pay the full price. I said the answer was still no. I was really annoyed that this guy was trying to get the computer back, and even more annoyed that he wasn't offering the full price. If he didn't want to sell it, then he shouldn't have sold it. However, Jeremy was not happy that I refused to give the computer back. He then sent me a friend request on Facebook and then started messaging me a bunch of times. I ignored him for a while, but after he kept sending me messages for like 3 days straight, I blocked him. I thought that was that. This situation was strange enough, but unfortunately, that was not the end of Jeremy. Probably about a week after I blocked Jeremy, he showed up to my house. I happened to be home alone and was in my bedroom, on the very gaming computer that I had bought from Jeremy. It was nighttime and about 8 p.m. and dark out. I heard a knocking coming from the front door. I got up and left my room and went over to the living room and then looked out of the window. Jeremy was there on the front step. I recognized him from when I bought the computer. How did he know where I lived? This was really strange. I watched him stand there and knock again on the front door. I was wondering what on earth he had planned. Did he think that by showing up at my house unannounced that would make me change my mind? I stayed in the living room and ignored his knocks. I was hoping that he would just go away, and most of the lights in my house were off, so maybe he would think that I wasn't home. But I watched Jeremy hang around the front step for several more minutes. I was kind of looking around, and I had to move back from the window so that he wouldn't see me. He came back and knocked again on the front door, this time louder. He also yelled, asking for me to come outside. I still ignored him. I walked back to my bedroom, hoping that Jeremy would eventually give up and leave. When I got back to my room, I put in some headphones and sat back down at my computer. For the next 5 minutes or so, everything was fine. But suddenly, I heard a knocking sound. I took out my headphones and looked to the direction of my window. Jeremy was standing there, looking into my bedroom. I got up and ran over to the window and closed the blinds. Jeremy started yelling at me, but I couldn't really hear what he said very well. I left my bedroom and went back towards the living room. By that time, Jeremy had made his way back towards my front door. Then he started banging on it again. I went over to the door and shouted to him that I was going to call the police. Jeremy yelled at me to give the computer back. Then I called the cops. I told them what was going on, and Jeremy still wasn't leaving, and he continued to stay there, even after I got off the phone with the police. But unfortunately, he finally left just moments before the cops got there. I talked to them, gave them a description of Jeremy, and told them my side of the story. After that, the police left and said to call back if Jeremy ever returned. I was afraid that he would, but luckily he didn't. I still have a hard time believing how crazy it was, and I can't believe that that actually happened. I had recently gotten a new car and had to sell my old one. I had bought it used, and it was kind of old, so I listed it on Facebook Marketplace. I was told that was a good place to sell a car. It seemed better than Craigslist, which always seemed a little bit sketchy to me. So after listing the car, I did receive a few messages about it in the first couple of days, but none of them really went anywhere. Then I would get the first serious interest. It was a man by the name of Ben on Facebook. He messaged me and said that he wanted to buy my car. We talked briefly, and basically the guy wanted to meet up and look at the car as soon as possible. I suggested a nearby shopping center parking lot for us to meet. At this point, it was sometime in the afternoon, and Ben wanted to meet that same night. I said that would be fine, and we agreed on 8:30 p.m. in the back of the parking lot. The shopping center had quite a few stores and a very large parking lot. Most of it was usually always empty. It was maybe 10 minutes from my house. So I ended up going there, expecting to meet Ben, who was seeming to be a serious buyer. I arrived slightly early, and after getting there, let Ben know that I was there. Then I just waited. Some time went by, and 8:30 came and went. Ben still hadn't showed up. I messaged him, asking where he was. He didn't respond though. I was getting frustrated. It appeared as though he had changed his mind about the car without telling me. After waiting past 9 o'clock, I finally left and started driving back home. About 10 minutes later, I arrived. At the time, I lived alone in a smaller house. As I was driving down my street, which is usually very quiet, I noticed headlights quickly coming up behind me. I remember thinking to myself, that person was going a little bit fast for this street. By the time I reached my driveway, they were right on my tail. So I pulled into my driveway, expecting them to drive past, but then the car that was behind me pulled in right after. Now my driveway was pretty short, but sort of wide. It could barely take two cars in front of each other. The car I usually drove was in the garage, and I was driving the one that I was trying to sell. So after this car pulled in behind me, I could only see the bright headlights shining in. I had a bad feeling about it. I wasn't expecting anyone at my house, and had no clue as to who this could be. But then I got the idea that maybe it was the guy from Facebook Marketplace. I knew that I couldn't get out of my car, so I turned to the right a little. Then I saw the car behind me start to turn to the right. I didn't know what exactly to do. I wanted to leave, but I felt like my car might be stuck there. The car behind me then started honking. I did not recognize the vehicle and was 100% sure that I didn't know this person. I then turned my wheel and just hit the gas. My car narrowly missed my garage, but I made it. Then I started to make a U-turn, but the car ended up going into the grass of my front yard off of the driveway. When I did this, the car behind me started backing up and turning to try to keep up with me. I was able to make it out of the driveway and started going down my road as quickly as I could. The car behind me was soon able to follow. I drove to the end of my street and then went through some residential streets for a short time. Then eventually I made it to a busier road. I traveled on that for a while, and then sometime over there is when the car behind me stopped following. I'm not sure when, because I was looking forward for several minutes, and there were also some other cars out on that road, but sometime whoever was following me stopped. Then I carefully went back home. Luckily, I didn't see the car again. I just have a feeling that that was Ben from Facebook Marketplace. He was probably just trying to follow me home and never even wanted to look at the car. Maybe he was going to try to steal the car or rob me. That's my best guess. But when I went back onto Facebook, he had blocked me. I tried reporting it to Facebook Marketplace, but I'm not sure what could really be done. After that though, I haven't used Facebook Marketplace since. This happened not too long ago. After a long day of work, I was driving home and starving hungry. I stopped at a McDonald's because it was just about the only place still open. After getting there, I decided to park in the parking lot and go inside to order. The drive-thru line was sort of long, and I thought it might be faster to just order inside. When I got inside the building, nobody else was in there other than employees. One employee stood behind the counter, and I walked up and ordered. After ordering, the employee went into the back and told me that they would be out with my order shortly. I then stood there, getting hungrier and hungrier by the second. As I waited, I glanced around the empty restaurant. That's when I noticed what appeared to be two men. They were not inside the restaurant exactly, but in the space between the first doors you walk in and then the second set of doors. The thing that really caught my attention though was that they were wearing masks. The masks looked like they were possibly from some movie or something, but they were really creepy. The guys just stood there inside. I looked away and continued to wait for my order. Probably about a minute later, the door opened and I saw the two men walking in. They made their way immediately to the left and inside the seating area of the restaurant. Then they went out of sight. The fact that they were not going up to order, but almost going to hide, was kind of concerning to me. Could they be planning to rob the place or something? That's what went through my head at first, but I quickly pushed that thought away. No way, I told myself. I stood there waiting for probably 2 more minutes. Then a McDonald's employee emerged from the back with my bag. I took it, and in that moment, considered letting the employee know about the men in masks who had gone inside, but ultimately, I decided not to. I walked away and left the restaurant. I did wonder though who those guys were and what they were doing. I was second-guessing myself the whole way as I walked out to my car in the parking lot. Maybe I should have said something, but as I was reaching my vehicle, I heard a noise behind me. I turned around as I was just a couple of feet away from my car door. When I did, I saw both of the two men running at me in a full sprint. They had just left the building, and there was no question that they were headed straight for me. I quickly unlocked my car, opened the door, and jumped inside of it. I hit the lock button, and the guys reached my car in less than 5 seconds. They tried opening my doors, and then started aggressively banging on my windows. I did the obvious thing, which was to back up and drive away. The men both kept hitting and kicking at my car as I did. Then they ran off to the far side of the McDonald's building. I got out of there as quickly as I could and then called the police when I was safely on the road. I'm sure the men probably ran off before the police got there, but I hope they were able to find them. Apparently, the men had targeted me. I'm not sure if that was their plan the entire time, if maybe they had been watching me, waiting for me to go in, or maybe they just decided to after seeing me inside. Who knows? What I do know is I'm really glad that I'm okay. This happened about a year ago. I went to a Burger King with my friend Emily. It was probably about 8 p.m. and we sat down in a booth to eat. Emily and I were just chatting and joking around, having a good time like always. We had been there for maybe 20 minutes when a man who was a Burger King employee walked over to us. He was sort of average height, had a little bit large build, and had dark hair. Immediately, I was wondering what he wanted. Burger King is not the type of restaurant where you have a waiter. It's not even the kind of restaurant where people usually come over and ask how the food is or anything like that. It's just a fast food place. He said hi, looking at both me and Emily. We said hi to him, and then there was an awkward silence. He started having like a casual conversation with us. I remember he said something like, "How are you guys doing?" or "What are you guys doing?" We were both confused and just told him that we were eating and talking to each other. He kept hanging around though. He was standing right next to the table. That's when Emily asked what the guy wanted. He acted all insulted and was like, "What did I do?" I thought he might be joking, and that's when the guy helped himself to a seat. He scooted in and sat right next to me on the bench of the booth. We sort of laughed it off, but I know I was secretly wanting him to leave, and I thought it was really uncomfortable. I'm sure Emily felt the same way too. Then, he asked us if we could go order him some food. That's when he started getting rude. We asked him to leave, and he just kept sitting there, and we argued with him for a while. It wasn't like a big scene or anything, and we weren't shouting, but we were going back and forth. Finally, he angrily got up and left us at the table. We watched him walk away and out the door. He'd been talking to us for a total of almost 10 minutes. Emily and I were really annoyed by this. We decided to go up and complain, to let them know that one of the employees had been harassing us. When we walked up there, there was a woman behind the counter. I said to her that there was an employee that had been really rude to us. The woman at the register looked annoyed. She said, "Yeah, and he was fired earlier." She went on to say that he had been fired just earlier that night, and she had thought that he left. The area we were sitting in was not visible to the front counter. She apologized and gave us a gift card for the trouble. We were also offered free ice cream. We accepted the offer and went back to sit down in the booth. We were there for maybe 10 more minutes, and then we left. After we got outside, we started walking to my car. I had drove from my house, which was really close by. When we were walking to my car, we saw the same employee step out of one of the cars that was parked in the parking lot. He started approaching us. Without giving it a second thought, Emily and I both sprinted for my car. As we did, he started running towards us. We got to my car as quickly as possible and got inside and locked the doors. It was probably the fastest amount of time that we possibly could have done it in. He reached the car just moments later. He tried opening Emily's door on the side. It was locked though. I backed away and left the parking lot. I was afraid that the guy would follow us home, but thankfully he didn't. This was definitely my scariest experience at a Burger King. I'm not sure why the guy was fired from Burger King, but he clearly had some problems. What his intentions were, I don't know, but hopefully Emily and I don't see him again. "6 years ago, I worked at a Burger King. At the time back then, it was the only job that I could find in my area close to where I lived. I should mention I'm a female and I was recently out of high school. Working there was okay for the most part. Some of my coworkers were pretty cool, but others were weird. One of those weird ones was my manager, Jason. I thought Jason was strange from the first time that I got a job there and was hired. I mostly tried to avoid him because he would always have weird conversations with people and give weird looks. He also added me on Facebook early on. He would post some really strange things. The guy just overall seemed odd. He never really did anything that crazy at work, but a lot of little things. I only worked at the Burger King for a total of 4 months. When I was able to find a different job, I quit and started working somewhere else. I think about 2 months after I left Burger King, I got home from my new job one night to see a car parked in front of my house. I didn't recognize it, so it was a little bit strange, but when I looked closer, I saw that the car was off and nobody appeared to be inside. I went inside after that. I lived with my parents, and by this time it was late, probably like 11 p.m., and they had already gone to bed. I changed, took a shower, and then got into my bedroom. After I got in bed, I looked out my window, which was next to it, and I saw the car on the street still parked where it had been earlier. But this time, it looked like somebody was inside the driver's seat and moving around. I stood up and got closer to the window to get a better look. When I did, I finally saw who it was. The driver appeared to look right at me as I was looking out at them, and it was my old boss, Jason, from Burger King. We made eye contact for about a second, and afterwards, he looked over and I saw him suddenly start the car and then drive off. I couldn't believe my eyes. I hadn't been expecting to see him at all, and this was pretty creepy. The next day, I drove back to the Burger King where I had worked. I walked inside and found the person working behind the counter. Thankfully, it was morning time and not very busy yet, and I wanted an explanation for what had happened. I didn't recognize the person working and had never seen them when I was there. I asked him if Jason was there. The guy behind the counter shook his head and said he wasn't sure who that was. I then saw someone who I had been a coworker with named Chris. He walked over and said hi to me. I asked him if Jason was working. He told me no, Jason had been fired a month earlier. When I asked more, he didn't know exactly why he had been fired. All he knew was he didn't work there anymore. I told him about seeing Jason outside my house the night before. He told me that he hadn't seen Jason since before he was fired, but he said after I had quit, Jason talked about me a lot, and he found it creepy. I was really angry hearing this. I left and went back home, but I didn't really think anything could be done about it. It didn't seem like he had done anything illegal, because he never actually went into my yard. I was nervous that night, and I had a hard time getting to sleep, but thankfully, I didn't see Jason or his car. I figured I scared him off when I saw him the previous night. The next few nights, I didn't see him either. But about a week later, when I was sleeping in the middle of the night, I woke up to hear noises coming from my window. I was really dazed at first from being asleep, but quickly woke up when I saw the figure of a man taking up my whole bedroom window. I turned the lights on and screamed, and he quickly disappeared. My parents woke up from across the hall and ran in. We called the police after that. When they arrived, I told them everything. Luckily, Jason ended up being caught. When I had just graduated from high school, I worked at a McDonald's for the summer before college. My name is Jess, and this took place probably almost 10 years ago now. I was working one night, and it was probably like 10 or 11 o'clock. I got off a short time after that, and at that point, I'd been working there for maybe 2 months total. Things were really quiet, and had been for the past few hours. I was working in the drive-thru, and I'd been doing that a lot at the time. A car pulled in, which was the first one in at least 5 minutes. When they stopped at the intercom, I spoke and asked to take their order. There appeared to be a man driving, and instead of ordering, he just asked, "Is this Jess speaking?" It caught me off guard. Was this somebody that I knew? I didn't recognize him. How could he know my name? I paused before saying, "Why are you asking?" He responded by saying that he knew it was me and he recognized my voice. I asked the man if I knew him because I was 90% sure that I didn't. He responded by saying no, I didn't know him. I asked the man if he was going to order anything, and he paused, and then he said he would just see me later tonight, and then drove off. He sped through the rest of the drive-thru area after that. It was an extremely weird thing to happen, and I hoped that the man was just joking. I worked for maybe only 30 minutes or so after that, and then I was off for the night. I lived at my parents' house back then, which was about a little under a 10-minute drive from the McDonald's that I worked at. Afterwards, I drove home. My neighborhood was pretty typical. But when I pulled onto my street, I drove down to my house, which was the fifth one down from the end. I saw a car parked out right in front of my driveway, but to the side between my house and my neighbor's. I had never seen it before. My heart started to race. I realized that it was the same car that had been in the drive-thru. I guessed this guy was serious when he said he would see me later. But who was he, and how did he know where I lived? I pulled into my driveway, which is something that I instantly regretted. I saw the car start, and then begin going into reverse. It parked so that it was completely blocking me in my driveway. I got out of the car right then and there and sprinted for the front door of my house. When I got there, it was locked. I started banging on it and trying to open it frantically. My keys were somewhere in my pockets, and I guess I was just so panicked that I didn't think to grab them. After probably 10 seconds, which felt like an hour, my mom opened up the door. I got inside, slammed the door shut, and then locked it. Then I explained to my parents what had happened. We looked outside, and the car was still there. My dad then took a step outside. I'm not sure if he was going to confront the man, or just get a better look, but as soon as he did, the car sped off. It didn't come back that night, and the next day, I told my manager at McDonald's about it. Unfortunately, there's not really much anybody could do. The problem was, the car the guy drove was really typical, just a black four-door sedan, and looked maybe 5 to 10 years old or so. I'm not even sure what make it was. I personally don't think I ever encountered the guy again, and luckily, I didn't work at the McDonald's much longer after that. Several months ago, I sold my PlayStation 5 on eBay. My friend was getting rid of his PS5 for an Xbox, so he sold it to me for a really good price. His PlayStation 5 was a little bit nicer than the version that I had, so I decided to sell mine. I listed it for a good price on eBay as a buy it now rather than an auction. Somebody bought it after just 2 days, and the very next day, I packaged it up really good and shipped it. I sent it to the address that was given from the eBay account that bought it from me. Now, 3 days after I shipped the PlayStation, and 4 days after it was sold, I got a message on eBay from the buyer. He told me that he recently moved and forgot to put his new address on his eBay account. Then he asked me that I ship it to his new address instead. I responded and told him that I already shipped the PlayStation several days ago and that it was too late. The guy freaked out, saying that I should give him a refund because he wasn't going to get it. I told him that he should have realized that, either before he bought it or within the first day. What was I supposed to do? Sit around waiting for his blessing for me to ship it? I mean, normally, people want things shipped as fast as possible after they buy it. He said that he was going to report me to eBay, but that didn't really scare me because I knew I had done nothing wrong. I told the guy that the package will have his name on it, so he should either go to his old address and pick it up, or contact whoever now lives there and ask them to send it to him. In my mind, that was a very logical solution. Obviously, if it was at the wrong address, there was a chance that somebody would steal it, but I mailed it in a box where it wasn't obvious that it was a PS5. The guy did not seem to think my ideas were good. He just told me that he needed a refund, and he kept threatening me, saying that he would have my eBay account banned. I told him that I wasn't going to refund him. Over the next few days, the guy kept harassing me, sending me messages. He kept saying that I had to give him a refund. He really wanted the money, but I wasn't going to give it to him. I just ignored him. So about a week later, I was looking at some of the messages that he sent me, and I decided to look him up, just for the heck of it. His username seemed to be his actual name. It was a first name, an underscore, and then a last name and a bunch of numbers. The last name was somewhat unique sounding, so I thought that I might be able to find him. I wanted to know what this guy looked like that was harassing me so much. I went onto Facebook and entered his name. Just one result came up, and it was a younger looking man. His page was public, so I could see everything that he posted and stuff, and he was quite active. I scrolled down just a little bit and saw a post that nearly blew my mind. He had posted a picture of a PlayStation 5 with the caption, "Just got this bad boy in the mail. Hit me up if you want to play some COD." The PlayStation looked just like the one that I had sold, and it was dated just 3 days after I had mailed the PlayStation, and the very same day that the guy told me that he had the wrong address. This guy was totally trying to scam me. It was a pretty bad attempt too, to be honest. I screenshotted the post and then sent it to him on eBay. The guy claimed that it wasn't him. Then he backtracked and said that it was his friend's PS5, not his. Then he backtracked again and called me a curse word. After that, I never heard from him again. This is something that happened a few years ago. I buy things on eBay here and there, and have been doing so for years. I like to collect things like sports memorabilia, and occasionally I bid on auctions. One time I saw this autographed football that was signed by one of my favorite players. It had 0 bids, and the starting bid was pretty low. I expected it to go way up, but I entered my maximum bid and then moved on, thinking maybe I had a shot at winning it. The auction still had several days left. Over the next few days, I actually forgot all about it. Then, I got a notification that I had won the auction and I could pay for the signed ball now. When I looked, I couldn't believe it. Not one single other person had bid on the ball, and I had won. I don't remember the exact price. I think it was maybe like $10. I was probably worth a lot more, maybe over $50. I was really excited and paid the money. The very next night though, I was at home when my phone rang. During this time, I had a landline phone that I had for years. I did not recognize the number on the caller ID, so I didn't answer it. What followed shortly after was a message. A man's voice came onto my answering machine, and he said that he was trying to reach me and mentioned my name. He said that I had won his auction for the football, and unfortunately nobody else bid on it. Then he said that I was getting way too good of a deal, and it wasn't fair at all, but he was going to do me a favor and mail it anyways. He went on to say that he expects me to leave him a very good review after this. Now, this rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like how he called me up on my personal phone to say this. I won his auction fair and square. If he didn't want the risk of somebody paying $10 for it, then he shouldn't have started the bidding so low. He knew the risks. I went on eBay and looked at some other listings of the same player's autograph on a football. They were going for a little over $50, so the guy lost out on about $40. It's not that big of a deal. Just 2 days later, I received the football in the mail. It was fast shipping because I guess the guy lived in the same state as me. After receiving the football, it was packaged well and just how it looked online. I went on eBay to leave the good review that the seller wanted so badly. To be honest, I really didn't want to leave him a good review after what he did. It kind of annoyed me. But when I logged into eBay, I noticed that he had already left me a negative review. On eBay, sellers and buyers can leave each other reviews. You can leave it positive, negative, or neutral. This affects your feedback, and people are less likely to buy or sell to you if you have a bad rating. Mine had been perfect to that point, and his was pretty good. I think it was like 99% positive. His negative review of me said, "Buyer got way too good of a deal." Clearly, he was upset about it, but I did not feel that it was fair for him to leave me a bad review. What was I supposed to do? I bid and I won. Did he expect me to offer to pay more for no reason? It angered me that he left me a bad review, so I left him a bad review. I said what happened. I said, "I won the auction from this seller for a good deal." He then called my home phone complaining and demanded that I leave him a good review. He sent me a message after this, which I ignored. I didn't even open it. Then, the next day, he called me again. I didn't answer, and he left another message. This one was very angry. He berated me for about 3 minutes straight. I didn't even listen to the whole thing and deleted it, but this didn't stop him. He called me again several times the next day. I got frustrated, and luckily I had call blocker installed on my landline. I blocked his number so that he would finally stop bothering me. For several days, everything was fine. But then, one night, I was at home, and out of nowhere got a knock on my front door. I walked down to the front door, but before opening it, looked outside. It was a man who I did not recognize. I didn't know why he would be here. I answered the door, and the man standing there mentioned my name and asked if that was me. I said yes. He then told me that he sold me a football on eBay not long ago. As soon as I heard that, I slammed the door right in his face. This caused him to start aggressively banging on my door. I yelled at him to go away or I was calling the cops. He was yelling and demanding that I give him the ball back, saying that I scammed him. I couldn't believe this guy. I'm not sure if he was really just mad about the ball at this point, or if he was just mad at me. He kept standing there and knocking on my door every so often. After he didn't leave for over 10 minutes, I called the police on him. When they arrived about 10 minutes after that, the man was still there. They spoke with him, and he gave his side of the story, which I'm not even sure what that was. An officer came inside and spoke to me, and said that the man outside kept claiming that I scammed him and stole his autographed football. I told the officer the whole story, and I showed him eBay proof on my phone. After a while, the police ruled in favor of me. They said that the transaction was fair and I owned the football. They told the man that he had to leave my property and told him not to come back. Eventually, the man agreed and left. After that, I never heard from him again. I still have the football, and every time I look at it, I laugh when I remember the crazy story that goes with it. story takes place a long time ago. It wasn't before cell phones, but it was before cell phones were an everyday thing. I mostly just used my home phone, and there was speed dial, but more times than not, you would have to dial the whole number every time you wanted to call somebody. Well, the story was on a Friday night, and I was home with my sister. We were both in high school at the time, and our parents were gone for the night with friends. We always liked to order pizza when our parents were gone, and there was this one spot in particular that was our favorite. My sister asked me to call, and I dialed the number. Apparently, when I was dialing, though, I messed something up, but I didn't realize it. A male's voice answered, saying, "Hello?" He sounded kind of confused, like he was wondering why I called. It seemed odd, but I said that I was calling to order a pizza. The guy responded, saying, "Okay." I went ahead with my order of a large pepperoni pizza. The guy just said, "Okay, what's your address?" I gave him my address, and he then said okay. It was kind of awkward, but we then said bye and hung up. My sister and I went into the living room and started watching TV, waiting for the pizza to get there. We had the money and tip on the counter waiting as well. About 20 minutes went by. We were getting really hungry and hoping that the pizza would be there soon. I happened to go over and look out the window, just out of curiosity. Then I saw a car coming down the street, very slowly. When I saw it come to a stop in front of our house, I told my sister that the pizza was here. She got excited and ran to get the money. I expected the car to pull into our driveway, but it drove a little bit past our house. I also noticed that there was no pizza delivery thing on top of the car. "Wait," I told my sister. The car then parked on the side of the road a little ways in front of our house. I watched the driver's door open and a man walk out. He began walking in the direction of our house, but he wasn't holding a pizza. I asked my sister to come and look, and she joined me at the window. We both watched the man walk into our front yard towards our front door. When he got closer, we both noticed that he was wearing a ski mask. When we noticed that detail, we ducked down at almost the exact same time. I was wondering what was going on. About 5 seconds later, there was a knock at the front door. My sister and I were whispering to each other, wondering who this guy was. After a few seconds of us not answering the door, he knocked again. Then, we heard a voice say, "Pizza delivery." We knew this was clearly not a pizza delivery. We were not going to answer. About 30 seconds went by with nothing. Then, he knocked again and said, even louder than before, "I'm the pizza guy with your pizza." He then knocked once more and said, "Open up." We were not going to, and we tried to be as quiet as we could. My sister and I were literally laying on the carpeted floor of our living room, trying not to make a sound. After maybe 2 or 3 minutes, he knocked again. Then, finally, we heard him walking away. I quietly went back to the couch and peeked out the window very carefully. I saw the man get back into his car and drive away. After my sister and I discussed what on earth just happened for a while, we decided to call the pizza place again. This time, we got the number correct, and we realized what had happened. We ordered the pizza for real and got it a short time later. I'm not sure what number exactly I called the first time, but whoever I called decided to pretend to be a pizza delivery man with a ski mask on. To this day, I still wonder what his intentions were. What would have happened if my sister or I opened the front door? I'm really glad that we didn't.
Before we begin, I want to let everyone know that this is a true story. Not a single detail has been fabricated. During my first year of middle school, I developed a bit of a reputation as a wild child, and I've had several run-ins with our school's resource officer. One day when I was at home watching TV in the living room with my sister, someone rang the doorbell. This startled my younger sister because our parents weren't home. I was the oldest of 4 children, and despite my rebellious nature, I was still the big sister. I wasn't too worried about someone at our door because I figured it was probably the mailman, or one of those annoying solicitors, or perhaps it was our neighbor checking in on us. I went to the door and politely asked, "Who is it?" "Open up. It's the police," a man's voice responded. By the way, our door had no peephole. That's a whole other story. But I could tell there was something off about this man's voice. It seemed cold and detached. I turned to my sister. "I don't know if this guy's really a cop. Go upstairs and go check on Jason and Ashley." I'll handle this. She darted up the stairs. The guy on the other side of the door began asking for somebody by name, claiming that they lived there. I think you got the wrong place. No one by that name lives here.
Well, I have a warrant that says otherwise. Are you lying to me, young lady?
No, the guy that you're looking for doesn't live here.
Then who just ran up the stairs?
This immediately creeped me out. There was a long window by the front door. It had one of those thick frost layerings. It wasn't easy to tell who was inside if you were on the outside looking through it. But it didn't look like he was standing in front of the window. So when did he take a look? He would have had to focus real hard to see my sister, because there were no lights on. Furthermore, it was midday, so it should have looked completely dark from where he was. I automatically felt threatened. Whoever this man was had crossed into creep territory. So now I was going to be a jerk. It was my sister, and she's obviously not the grown man that you're looking for.
Why did she run?
Because you're a fucking weirdo.
Excuse me, you don't talk to a police officer like that.
The way he said that sounded like he was becoming annoyed, like I should just trust him on his word alone. Well, if you are a cop, you're not a very good one, because you're at the wrong address. And how do I even know that you are a cop?
You should just open the door and see for yourself.
That's when I saw my sister peeking around the corner at the top of the steps. Get back, I whispered. We rarely get people at our door when my parents aren't home, but it's not impossible. I had this habit of locking the screen door. It was very strong for a screen door as well. And to clarify, it was one of those screen doors directly outside of the front door. Our front porch was open. I figured I would take the risk and open the door, just to see if this man was really a cop. When I opened up, the man on the porch did look like a cop. His hand was on his gun, and he kept looking behind me as if he was searching for something. His behavior made me trust him even less. He began grilling me about my sister, trying to catch me in a lie. Okay, so who really ran up those stairs? It was my sister. I already told you. How do I know it's your sister and not the person I'm looking for? Look, you have the wrong address. The man glared at me through his aviators. It was hard to see his face because of how big they were. It was like he was trying to hide his face. I know it's a silly thought for a kid, but my mom and I watched tons of true crime shows together. I know it was stupid to open the door, but I had this sinking feeling that he knew that we were alone. Up to this point, he did not ask for my parents, not even once. I just wanted to keep him in sight, because I knew my parents would be home soon. The cop explained to me that the man he was looking for lived at our house, and according to his paperwork, this was still his current address. I informed the cop that we had been living here for a few years now, and I knew for a fact the woman before us lived here alone. This frustrated him, and he informed me in a demanding tone that he was going to check the house himself. No you're not. Young lady, you're interfering with police business. Now open up the door before you get in trouble. I'm not stupid. I know that you need special court papers to come inside. I was in a stubborn mood, and nobody wins against me when I'm in a stubborn mood. Unless, of course, you're my parents. Cop or not, this man wasn't coming inside the house, or going anywhere near my siblings. That's when he demanded to speak to my parents for the first time. Where are your parents? I want to speak to them about your behavior. He was trying to use the get me into trouble tactic to frighten me. In reality, my mom was far scarier than him. He would have been afraid of my mom because she's the type to kick someone's ass and then ask questions later. But she doesn't play around when it comes to her kids. She wouldn't assault or threaten a police officer, but he would have been in for it, because my mom would have unleashed a verbal onslaught. Full-blown Karen mode. Level 10. My parents aren't here right now. They're at the grocery store. I had a feeling that he already knew my parents weren't home. Up until then, he hadn't asked for them. I didn't know if he was a cop or not, but I didn't want to aggravate him further by telling him a lie. I know that my behavior was annoying, but I wasn't going to give him a reason to call me a liar. That's when he reached for the screen door and tried to open it. That's when he discovered it was locked. "Open the damn door!" I said no. I then slammed the door shut so he couldn't ask me again. I snuck halfway up the stairs and listened. He began yanking and tugging on the screen door.
Little bitch, I should arrest you and teach you a lesson.
After that, he just walked through our neighbor's yard like nothing happened. That's when I realized that I never saw any cop cars in our driveway. We lived in townhomes, so I could see all the vehicles from a distance, and I didn't spot a single cruiser parked nearby. My parents showed up almost right after he left. I told my mom what happened. "Well, you shouldn't have opened the door, and you should have called me right away. What's the matter with you? You're grounded. Now come help me with the groceries." I couldn't help but notice that our neighbors checked on us far more often after this incident, and our parents got us a babysitter whenever they left the house without us. I'm not 100% sure, but something tells me that that man who came to the house wasn't a cop, and I would have put my family in danger by allowing him inside. To everyone listening, teach your kids that a uniform is just not enough. You should ask for their badge number and call the police station to verify if you can. It also doesn't hurt to invest in a strong, sturdy screen door.